think Ja Morant wants out of Memphis, that's for sure. I think if Memphis could, they would, they want to get rid of Ja Morant as well. Just, these ongoing disciplinary issues that are going on. He's already had the suspensions for, that gun situation and, just being a bad teammate, in the clubhouse, right? He's also, had a couple injuries, right? I think it was the 2023 season where he was out almost the entire season with that, the serving his gun suspension, and then he comes back and tears his shoulder and is then out for the rest of the season with that injury, right? So the combination of the, the disciplinary and the injuries, make him a pretty bad fit right now, especially in Memphis, which, can be known for, rowdiness. I'm not saying the team, but as the city, right, it's known for, being a little violent sometimes. Just a spot, a terrible, location for a player that already has maybe some, quote-unquote mental issues. Just a terrible spot to put a guy like that in, right? He goes to another team. I actually do think he can turn his career around. I'm not saying he's done, but at this point, what team really wants him, right? He's always injured. He, is having a rough year in terms of efficiency. He's not a top guard in the league for sure anymore. And, I think he can be good on both ends of the floor, but right now he's just not. And so I'm not sure what you do if you're Memphis. They haven't signed a contract for him. You could just let him walk, but at that point you're starting up from scratch. You're rebuilding around a team, a lottery pick, which they're going to be in the lottery this year, I believe. But we don't know, if they'll win the lottery per se. And because, the odds are now so narrow, really any team can win. Conversation for a different time. I'm not a fan of the lottery. I wish, the NBA was okay with teams just tanking and getting that first pick. I really think, you look at a team like the Wizards, the Jazz, the Nets, always bottom teams over the last couple of years, and they just haven't been able to get a top pick because of how these, picking a number out of a hat, right? That's how Dallas got Cooper Flagg. And we'll talk about Dallas because Dallas is a whole different situation going on right there. But yeah, that's really all I have to say on the Memphis Grizzlies. I think, they are going to want out, or at least Memphis is trying to get rid of Ja Morant. Ja Morant, I think, wants out of Memphis. So really it's a mutual way. You're just waiting for another team to, want him, which at the moment I don't think you have a team that is interested in a guy like Ja Morant. All right, moving on. The Detroit Pistons are on a 9-game win streak. They beat Philly the other day without Cade Cunningham. JB Bickerstaff is my, coach of the year, my favorite right now. You have, multiple rookies or young players, guys like Dennis Jenkins. He looks legit. You have, I really think the Pistons are a top team in the league right now, top 2 team. I think I have them right behind the Thunder. And they're doing it with or without Cade Cunningham, right? Obviously, Cade Cunningham is just putting up monster numbers when he's on the court. I think he's probably, he's playing right now, probably the best basketball we've ever seen from him. He's carrying a team that, I'm not going to say they're trashed without him because they're winning all these games without him, but he's just bringing this team from, maybe a 4 or 5 wins above 500 to a 10 games above 500 team right now. It's just incredible to watch. Right? And they're right behind the Thunder. And, the Thunder, they're better than they were last year. I know it's hard to say it. They broke records last season by, I think, getting a 12 point net rating, right? Positive 12, the best point differential of all time. And this year they're beating teams by 15. And they're doing it without Jalen Williams. Right? Jalen Williams hasn't even played a game. I don't even know when he's coming back. But I mean, the fact that this team is winning without Jalen Williams, I don't even know if there's a team in the NBA that's going to win a game against the Oklahoma City Thunders in the playoffs, let alone a series. I mean, it's just incredible, right? I have this team winning 70 games right now, and I know, there's been talk of whether they're going to try and go for a record. You play it by year. If you're around there, if you're around 70 wins with, games to go, yeah, I try and go for the record. And we don't know, right? Injuries could, I'm not going to say they're going to derail the season, but it could stop them of reaching a 70-win mark, right? I mean, I don't think there's any injury short of, SGA and Jalen Williams being down that take this team out of the playoffs, right? I mean, it's just overwhelming for teams right now. And it's nice to see that teams like the Pistons, the Rockets are, at least playing well and in championship contention. Because if it was just the Thunder, there wouldn't really be a point of watching this season because we would know who was going to win right from the start of the season. And yes, I don't think there's anyone in their right mind that's not going to pick the Thunder, if they're playing like this. But it's nice to know that maybe it is possible for the Rockets, the Pistons, the Nuggets, some of these top teams, the Lakers, to make it an interesting game, if not series. Unfortunately, most of these teams are in the West, which, makes a great Western playoff run. But the East, it's pretty weak. That's why, I don't want to make this about the Celtics. But, that's why the Celtics can sneak in here and even a 6th spot. And I know they're only at 500 right now, but they played the Nets twice. Pistons, that's going to be a big game right before Thanksgiving. Magic, they can get above 500 or, like a couple games above 500 and stay above 500. They can easily find themselves at Christmas time, in an actual playoff spot.